Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam, and today I want to share a kind of funny way of looking at our biggest existential hangups. And um, this came up during meditation, and it is one of those instances where you're looking at the fear of all fears, the fear of annihilation, and it looks almost like a black hole that aims to swallow you, a huge void of pure darkness and dread and hopelessness. And because of my Spanish speaking background, I thought, okay, this is the gap of all gaps, so I'm going to nickname mine El Gapo, right? So I was meditating and I was sort of at the edge of El Gapo and wondering whether to jump or not, which is often the case, right? You feel this enormous darkness and affects in your body that are kind of ready to swallow you and eat you alive and plunge you into never-ending dread and misery and hopelessness. And the reason that I wanted to share this is for a couple of reasons. The moment I nicknamed him or it El Gapo, it became really funny, right? Because it gives this sense of magnitude and I don't know, it's funny at the same time, and it took the bite off of it, and it didn't make it any pleasant, but it sort of put it into a context in which we sometimes, while doing shadow work, get completely immersed in this sort of dark cloud, and we feel like we're tackling things, but we can sometimes lose context of the broader picture in which we are just in a room, nothing is really happening, and our life is also made up of ups and downs in which we feel dread at one moment and joy the next. But whilst we are facing El Gapo, it may feel like it's going to swallow us and never let go, and our life will just become dreadful from that point onwards, right? We're going to either vanish or it's going to do something really nasty, which is never the case when we're doing shadow work. But when shadow work goes from emotional discomfort to existential discomfort, which is where El Gapo lives, we can often lose track that of the fact that these are just affects that come and go and that can be perfectly processed, and it'll be fine. There we go. And so I wanted to share that for whatever it's worth. And the other thing that I often share with people that I work with, and which often helps in facing El Gapo or minor, they don't seem minor at the time, but it's smaller emotional hangups, is the ego likes to see things, or our mind likes to see things in a very black and white type of way, right? So it feels like we are going to go into a Mexican standoff with El Gapo. It's going to be a grandstand in which it's either going to kill us or we're going to kill it, but it's going to be the moment of truth, right? It's going to be really our finest hour in which we face it and get obliterated, and we go up in flames, and it's all this sort of eschatological end of days sacrificial thing in which we are either vindicated or completely annihilated by it. What a more skillful way to see it, but also to work with it, is not so much to see it as an on and off switch, but more like a dimmer switch or a volume knob. Yeah. And this is where techniques of shadow work and trauma resolution, such as titration, come in much more handy. Titration is this notion that we can get progressively acquainted with and become tolerant of discomfort, emotional discomfort. It's true to say that we can't always manage what speed things at what speed things come up. Sometimes things just come up faster than we hope they would. But that's not to say that our system cannot be progressively prepared for these things, that we cannot do a lot of embodiment work, a lot of techniques for stabilization of our nervous system, a lot of techniques to know how to sit with open awareness, how to become more acquainted with our somatics. The more we pave the road with these kind of techniques, the more those techniques help and serve a grounding purpose and a kind of container effect in which things can detonate inside that container without us feeling the fear that that detonation is going to topple us over and send us into some sort of emotional spin that we can't recover from. You see? So when I keep preaching, to use a rather weird word, or when I keep banging on the notion of doing somatics and embodiment and cultivation, this is not just empty words, and it is not to say that the cultivation is going to resolve or awaken us. It's to say that the system knows and can intrinsically feel how solid it is, how well knit and stable it is, and how much it'll be affected by a certain pillar of certainty or reassurance. If it's removed, will that make it topple over? Yeah, it is often said in psychology that we should not change big things in our life all at the same time, such as moving country, changing partner, and changing jobs, for example, right? So if you change too many pillars at once, the system feels unstable. But this is because typically the system is taking externals and flimsy things as pillars for its stability. But if we cultivate steadiness of mind, if we cultivate the titrated or progressive feeling of discomfort and our relationship to fear, if we cultivate embodiment, groundedness, or grounding techniques, then externals start to become far less important for us. And then the system in itself feels the strength to pull the plug away from something that has been toxic but used until then as a reassurance in our life. Or we feel that we can simply feel big existential affects that simply need to be felt as yet another little layer that can be done away with. And therefore, the plunge into El Gapo doesn't need to be done in a single go, but rather you can face El Gapo and you can kill it by like death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like you can slice away at it until you come to realize that there was no Gapo in the end, right? That there was no such thing as the big darkness or the big existential, boogeyman. One final word, which might deserve its own video on this topic, is that to the mind and to the individual sense of self, El Gapo, or that big void, appears as the scary unknown. And when you follow into that, you find your heart. So the very heart that you want to open, the very blooming of our consciousness and the opening of our self to reality, appears as the scariest thing that can be done from the standpoint of the mind. And so as it turns out, El Gapo is the door to freedom, but it doesn't look that way, and it certainly doesn't feel that way. And it will rarely help to know this, because experientially it's a hell of a scary thing, or it can be a scary thing. Hopefully with a little bit of humor, a lot of cultivation, and some context into what it is that we're really doing and facing here, some of this process can be a little bit easier, or at least better informed. And so I share that for whatever it's worth, actually. I hope that you enjoy this one. I hope you join me in plunging into El Gapo, either progressively or in a single jump, if you feel that you're prepared for that. And I'm curious to hear your take on the topic, and if you think that this is a handy piece of advice, then your liking, sharing, and subscribing makes it more available to others out there. So thanks for listening so far. I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. Cheerio, and bye-bye.